Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I'm so super excited to have you guys here with me today and my amazing guest, Miss Mary Scott. So Mary, do us a favor and tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into it.
Mary Scott. I'm originally from New York and currently living in lovely St. Louis. I always liked telling stories. My mother was Lois Lane, so she worked for a great metropolitan newspaper during the war. And that reporter consciousness of wanting to hear other people's stories and tell them to other people, that's been there forever. So I started a video production company in New York, and I did a lot of business-to-business videos. I did a lot of documentary films that made money, actually 2 documentary films that were profitable. I also did a cable TV show on science fiction, and fantasy. So I got to interview artists and writers and actors and production special effects people and scientists. Woo, scientists. I actually got to hold a Nobel Prize in my very hand. I was stunned. Joe Taylor from Princeton got a Nobel Prize for discovering the first binary pulsar. There he goes. Okay.
Wow.
Fast forward, moved to St. Louis from New York in about 9 years ago. And COVID hit, and I just decided I'm not carrying video equipment anymore. So maybe I'll get paid for what I know in terms of business advice rather than what I do. And the startup ecosystem here is fabulous. So I became a startup business consultant and resource wrangler. I created the St. Louis Startup Resources Guide and bought the URL stlstartupecosystem.org. So now not only is one-stop shopping for startups, but all resources can know each other and cross-refer clients and do collaborations. So yay.
Nice.
So that's what I'm mostly doing now, is helping startups do it right the first time so they don't have to fix it later, learn to pitch successfully, and get money from investors.
That is so cool. I think like this, and I told you this the first time that we went to, like, this is so cool to me because I know that you have probably met some of the most interesting people and the things that they, have invented that they're wanting to bring in front of people or whatever the case may be. So I have to ask, like, what is like one of your favorite things that you've seen kind of come across your plate that you've pushed out to people to help with their startup?
One of the most interesting things is something called a ZPod. George Bailey has an autistic kid, and as a parent of an autistic kid, you never get a good night's sleep because these kids don't sleep through the night no matter how old they are. So he decided to invent a pod that provides snuggliness and sensory deprivation, so the kids are totally not stimulated and they actually can sleep through the night. So cool. And it's got an app on the
So
parent's
cool.
phone that lets you know if they happen to open the door in the middle of the night. ZPod. And he went through all kinds of stuff to get like insurance reimbursement and all this stuff. And I said to him, George, look at the ZPod. He said, yeah. I said, what does it look like? He said, it's a sleep pod. I said, George, it looks like a little spaceship. Don't you think that thousands of rich kids would love to sleep in a little spaceship? Can I introduce you to FAO Schwartz? Can I introduce you to Sharper Image? So big market expansion there.
Yeah.
He had no idea what he had until another pair of eyes took a look and said, wait a minute, there's more here.
Yeah.
So that was a real cool thing.
That is super cool. And I love that too, because, in the beginning of my podcast, when it first came out, it's funny. I actually had a conversation with a lady who found out that her son was autistic, and she ended up writing a book about it because they weren't aware of what was going on. He was like, super young, like 3 or 4, and he was having the sensory issues, and they just saw it as tantrums because that's what most people think that it is, until she started doing some research and really figured out all the things behind it. And, so apparently I'm eating my own hair. So I just think that that's super cool because I don't understand, all the different levels of autism and some of the things that it does for certain people. And it's really interesting that someone created something just to at least help them sleep that takes what we normally are used to listening to, like a fan, right? For instance, that can cause such a disruption to them and their mental health and them being able to actually get rest, plus the parents, right?
Right. And the thing about a lot of startups come up with a solution to a problem that they have. And then they expect there are other people out there that have similar problems. It's really fascinating to me to meet new people with brand new ideas and new ways of looking at stuff. One gal was looking at the problem of hunger and how much water you use to create one cow or one pig. And she discovered that around the world, a huge source of protein is cricket powder. So
What?
it takes 1 gallon of water for 1 pound of cricket protein rather than 1,700 gallons of water for 1 pound of beef.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And she came up with cricket protein that makes delicious shakes and can make great cookies and brownies.
Oh my goodness.
Who knew, right? So, and her company's called the Mighty Cricket. They just got another $300,000 investment.
That is so cool. Like, I
Very,
feel like
very
you have
proud
like
of
the
her.
coolest job.
Yeah, yeah. And so, it can be tech, it can be food, it can be a new service or something that you're doing. And I just love being able to help these folks get exactly the right resources they need to not waste their time and just get to the next level faster.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, I feel like, and tell me, like, kind of your opinion, but having an actual product, like something like that can really help like a lot of consumers.
Mhm.
It's very different than just like the entrepreneurs where we're a lot of times we're using our own personal experience. We can create our own products, but it's not something like that, which needs production and all the stuff behind it and the investments from other people. And I feel like that's such a huge difference on the scale of what they need. Is there anything that you feel like a lot of people tend to miss in that
Um,
arena?
I think what a lot of people, the biggest mistake people make is that they don't validate their idea. And just because you've come up with this, what you think is a great idea, doesn't necessarily mean it is, or that it hasn't been come up with already, or that there isn't somebody else out there doing something similar that you should be collaborating with. So that's like rule number one, is do your research, really check and see, is this a really good idea? And ask potential customers, is this a good idea? And the important question, would you be willing to pay for this? Because if you're not in revenue, you're not in business.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And then sometimes people get hung up on the tech, or they get in the weeds. They're a tech person and they love the coding, or they love the tweaking of the little mechanical things, and they're missing out on the marketing, where they could be getting the word out and getting people excited about potentially getting this product sooner. So sometimes it's about introducing people to a co-founder, so that you have the one person who does the work and the other person that does the sales and marketing.
Makes total sense. Kind of allows you to stay in your zone of genius too, right? I mean, we talk about
Right.
that in the entrepreneurial world, and a lot of us
yeah.
go outside of that, but especially in something like that can be on such a large scale, you really have to know where to strategically place people.
Right. And it's interesting that most of the younger entrepreneurs that have a product, they're trying to get it manufactured in America rather than going to China. Even a few years ago, people were still going to China to get things manufactured, particularly if it was a 3D printing, plastic, higher tech version of something. They'll get the patent here, and then they'll try to get it produced here as well. And more cities are opening up that have manufacturing capabilities, and government's getting a little better at matchmaking between producers and innovators.
That's good. I'm excited to hear that one, because I feel like we take so much off of our soil to other countries, which I get helps them. And at the same time, there's so much here that we could be doing for the people here that we could be helping with if we would bring some things back. So that's neat. I didn't know that. That is super cool. So tell me then, I have so many questions in my brain. Like, I might just have to let you take the lead, Mary.
Keep them coming.
Right. But so what do you consider, like, a lot of people say that they have startups and stuff. What do you consider a startup per se?
A startup is anybody who's been in business less than 5 years, full time, who might be in revenue but not quite in profit yet. I found that there are three kinds of entrepreneurs. They're the ones who are born that way, and they are never going to be somebody's employee. They're always going to have their own company and run a team of people to do whatever it is. Those are the born entrepreneurs. Then there are the reluctant entrepreneurs, who are people with a tremendous skill set who got downsized, and they can't really get a job again. So they have to take their skills and market them personally. They have to start their own business based on what they're capable of doing already. And then there are the accidental entrepreneurs who are having a great old time with a hobby and doing this sort of thing, and look behind them, all of a sudden they're making money and they have a business and they're not quite sure. So, yeah. So no matter what camp you're in, there are still some basic things that people need to know, particularly if you haven't been to business school. And the vast majority of people who start a business know how to do something or make something. They don't necessarily know business, right? And you don't, when you're in the middle of this stuff, you don't have time to go to business school, right?
Yeah.
So I do a couple of workshops that get people up and functional legally. So there's like 10 steps to start your business legally.
Okay.
It's got stuff in it like you have to make sure that your bank account for your business is in a separate institution from your bank account for your personal.
Yeah, that's important.
Just basic step-by-step things, and a lot of stuff people just forget. So there's 10 steps to how to set up a business legally. I also do a workshop on 10 mistakes startups make and how to avoid them.
Nice.
Because 67% of startups fail in the first 5 years, and that's terrible. I
Wow.
want startups to be wildly successful. So here are the 10 common mistakes to avoid so that you can make your own mistakes and learn from them, because they're good mistakes for you to be making in your company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you have such a vast amount of knowledge from the industries that you've been in as well, and the connections of the people that you have.
Well,
You're
that's the
like, you're
reporter background. That's the having done enough contact with people in enough different lines of work and areas of life that I
mm-hmm.
know enough about just about everything to get myself into a whole lot of trouble. So that's, and I'm happy to go see if it's going to be trouble before I let somebody else know that you should go do this or not do this.
Do you feel like you kind of have an insight to things that you kind of already have an idea that it's going to make it, like kind of almost like an insider knowledge because of the people that you are connected with?
Yeah. I mean, when you're in the media, you really have to have a sense of what the general people like, but
Mm-hmm.
also what the different niches like. One of my favorite examples of somebody I tried to emulate is Jim Henson. When you watch the Muppets, they have humor that is appreciated on every conceivable level. The little kids like it for one reason, the older kids like it for another reason, the teenagers like it for another reason, the old people for a whole other reason. Everybody likes. And the fact that the way stuff is written and the way those characters are developed to have those different appeals, um, that's just that's the gold standard as far as I'm concerned.
I love that you have that kind of insight as well, as well, because especially when you're in the middle of whatever it is that you're doing or whatever it is you're building, it's so easy for you to get blindsided or be like so closed into your box because of your focus to not see the opportunities, the things that you could change, things that you could be missing. So I love that, you're able to bring that perspective and kind of like pick them up outside of their box and be like, but look at all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, life is a banquet and most poor suckers are starving to death. That's my favorite line from the Wonderful World of Auntie Mame. Um, so this is when you have an approach that someone throws in a problem, it's okay, what can we do to solve this? Which is
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I really love about St. Louis. This is the attitude. You throw in a business problem and you'll get people going, okay, what can we do to solve this? Not it's not my fault or it's not a problem or who should we blame? It's like, okay, what can we do to solve this?
Yeah.
And I love that can-do attitude here. And it fits with my approach to just about
Mm-hmm.
anything. It's challenges, it's not so much problems.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're right. It is challenges. It's just, different ways that maybe you have to go around the bump in the road or how you're going to get over it or whatever the
Right.
case may be. And I love that you've created like this community of people as well, right? That really want to amp each other up instead of what I feel like we see in society a lot, which is it's not my problem. It's not my issue. I'm going to stay over here and complain about all the things.
Yeah. It's, complaining doesn't really help unless it sparks somebody to think about some way to solve it.
Yeah. And I feel like rarely does that ever happen.
I I one of my times when I felt like I had actually done a good job as a parent, I was cooking and my 11-year-old daughter was on the phone with a friend behind me, and I overheard my daughter say, "Well, Michelle, you can either live with it, or you can die with it, or you can fix it." And I thought to myself, whoa, yes,
Proud parenting moment.
something got through.
Something got through. I love that. I understand that on so many levels, especially with having two teenage boys. And I feel like everything goes like in one ear and out the other.
Right, right. Another great slogan, particularly with teenagers, got from some comedian out there somewhere, is like, if they didn't drive you crazy, they'd never leave.
Oh, well.
So you know, and think back when you were a teenager. It's always easier to leave when you're mad at someone.
Yeah,
So, you
sure.
know, you expect if they didn't drive you crazy, they'd never leave. So, and it's your job as a parent to get them out and functional in society. So, yeah.
Yes.
And to some extent, if your
100%.
clients didn't drive you crazy, they would never leave.
Very true. I mean, it is your job, right, to push them to the
And to
next
get them
level.
to the point where they don't need you anymore.
That, yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're doing things right, and you're helping others grow, you don't want them to always have to stay with you. You can always be a resource, which is one
Right.
thing, but you
Sure.
don't want to be that leg that's trying to hold them up
Right.
because they keep
And, you
leaning
know,
on you.
eventually hang in the background and be a cheerleader.
Right.
So that's, you know, that's where that's your goal, and how you get there, kind of
Yeah.
figure it out.
I
So
love that. And I love cheering people on once you see them like really get into where it is
yeah,
that they're wanting to go. I just, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that we hold people back if we feel like we need to keep on controlling where they're going and be such a huge part of it versus allowing them to level up so that they can help people that relate to them and we can continue to help people that relate to us.
right. And celebrate your own successes. Be happy with what you're succeeding at. You don't need to succeed through other people necessarily. You can be very proud of your kids because they're succeeding on their own. Yay for them.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, yay for them.
Yeah, but and it's that validation, right, that everybody is like total is always constantly searching for. We're always trying to pull more to us
Yeah,
to make us feel good instead of realizing that, like you
sure.
said, your child saying that was a validation for you. Nobody had to pat you in the back, but it was like, oh my gosh, they have grown
Hey,
and they're
I'm
growing in
glad
their own way.
they got it. They absolutely got it. I was just thinking therapists make a lot of money helping people let go. You know,
Yeah.
helping people not care what everybody else thinks.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Now, when you're dealing with people that are in that startup piece, I know that, you do a lot kind of in the in between. What is some of the intricate pieces that you feel like you help with besides, just getting them to the right people to connect with to take them from there? Is there kind of like a coaching aspect behind it of getting them to understand where they stand and knowing where they can go and making sure that they have a logical sense
Sure.
because we can dream,
Yeah,
right?
sometimes it's a question of focus. A lot of entrepreneurs have many ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and you can only really be successful with one at a time. There's there's the myth of multitasking, and particularly if you're working on more than one business at a time, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
do not real well in any one of them. So rather than saying don't do this, do this, I help people put together a list of all the things they want to do, all the different ideas they have, and then look at the list and decide honestly which one of these is going to make me the most money the fastest. That's the one you do first.
Mm,
And then
okay.
you go down the same list, go down and go, okay, which one of these things is going to make me happy? Or which one of these things is going to be the most fun to do? And that's the one you do next. So you go money happy down your list. And you can potentially do it all, but one thing at a time. And sometimes it's a question of helping, like an engineer, understand what their skills are and what their skills aren't. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is this way.
Yeah.
Which means that when you get a strategic alliance with somebody who has those skills you do not have or aren't as good at, then the two of you have a much better shot at being very successful than just one of you trying to wing it in spaces that aren't fun and you're not good at.
Yeah. And I feel like that drags the process out so much more. And you're putting in so much more time and effort. And you can make a lot more mistakes in that because you're dragging yourself through it.
Sure. I mean, it's great to take a course in how to build a website, not to build your own website, but to be able to talk to a developer about what you need.
I love that.
Know enough about a process to be able to hire somebody who's really good at it. And that's going to save you time and effort, and you'll have much higher quality results in the long run.
That makes a lot of sense. I've never thought of that. That makes so much sense to learn about it so that you have the understanding, you understand the language, you can have a conversation on the same level as them and still entrust them to take over. But you're also able to be aware of if something isn't going the way you want it to, or if there was some type of miscommunication, a lot easier than if you're down here on your learning level and they're way up here and you hope that they can meet somewhere in the middle.
Right. And there are more than one way to get something done well. There's not just one way to do it. And done is better than perfect. Sometimes you need to just get it out there and let the marketplace help you decide where to tweak it, not just because you want to tweak a certain thing that may make no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, you think people are looking at the wrinkles around your eyes, and in fact, they're looking at how big your smile is. So you need to understand, what's the marketplace really looking for. So, rather than spending all your time and effort on something that you're the only one who cares about.
Yeah, no, and that makes a ton of sense. I mean, that's even like, in the world of real estate, which is where I started my entrepreneurial journey, we can price houses. And this is something that, I tell all my clients, and I know that what that was taught is we can price your house wherever, right? And I can price your house where the market shows, but it's the people that are coming through your home that are ultimately going to decide what needs to be changed, what needs to be worked on, and where your price really sits, regardless of all the other pieces, right? Because if the trend is everyone's looking for an open concept 12-foot ceiling, and you're trying to price your 1980s home with the newer homes that do have that, the market is telling you it doesn't fit.
And you need to go for somebody who's looking for a nostalgic home to move into. They're downsizing.
Right. But it's taking that aspect of the personal connection, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure a lot of people that have created this product and have this idea have such a strong personal attachment to it sometimes that it's very hard for them to see the business side of it and disconnect from that.
Yeah. Well, it's their baby. And understanding that, yes, it is your baby, and this is how you feel about your baby right now. But understand, as a good parent, ultimately babies grow up and get older and drive you crazy, and then they leave. So, take the analogy and take it to the next logical space, and people understand a little better about, yes, you can have these feelings, but at some point you need to be able to move on with stuff and stop tweaking things that don't matter.
Yeah. And it's always good to get an outside opinion, but let me preface with not your best friend, not your family, like someone that actually has experience, like Mary, for that. Because if not, right, it can be really skewed, it can be very biased, or you don't actually get from a consumer's point of view because people want to make you feel good. And so they're not giving an honest opinion, which can be very detrimental.
Right. And if somebody is, I'm quite honestly, if somebody has got a new mechanism to improve steering on a race car, I'm not the one to evaluate its value, but I can certainly connect you with somebody over at the racetrack who can do that.
You know your zone of genius.
Yes, yes.
But having the ability to connect people with the right companies and people that can directly assess it to be able to give a very honest opinion from the consumer side is amazing to be able to do, because I feel like that saves so many steps in that in-between process where people try to do the research on their own. And a lot of times it is with friends and family or people that we know or people who know us, right? Which isn't necessarily the correct data.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Like, Mary, you are a wealth of knowledge. and the connections and everything that you have is amazing as well. But it blows my mind. I love that you chose to, like, take this path, to take all of the knowledge and the connections and all the people that you have worked with to create something that is uniquely yours. Because I have to say, right, there's not a lot of consultants that, in my opinion, work with startups. There's companies, right? You always find a company that wants to take a large portion.
Accelerators and incubators and angel investors, and there are lots of university entrepreneurship programs and things like that. Mm-hmm. And depending on who you are as an entrepreneur, you may want to go and take a course. You may want to connect with an accelerator or an incubator. I'm a good first stop because I can help you decide what path you want to take, the one that's going to work for you. So, for example, when somebody asks, what's the best CRM? What's the best contact resource management system? Mm-hmm. My response is the one you're going to use.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I have my favorite, but it's the one you're going to use that's going to be useful to your business.
Yeah.
So, and that works for accounting software, that works for inventory and invoicing software, all of this stuff. It's going to be the one that you're going to use. And to some extent, the one your potential clients are using, because you want to have some stuff that's going to be compatible.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times we get stuck in that because, well, I thought everybody was using this, or this one has the most ads, so it has the most reviews. But you're right. It really does come down to what you're actually going to use and what you understand, right? Mm-hmm. So that you can conversate around it.
That's where, the 1 or 2 hour workshop or YouTube videos are great. I mean, you can find out how to do anything on YouTube practically. People learn how to play video games on YouTube by watching other people playing video games. That's people watch people playing video games the same way people watch football.
No, it's crazy. That is crazy to me.
It's entertainment, and your audience is going to like, you don't necessarily have to understand why they like whatever it is. It helps a lot, particularly if you're marketing from a psychological point of view. But if you know what they like and that's what you give them, it's pretty, you don't need to know why.
Yeah, true. Very true. It's like, making sure that you're focusing on the right things and not necessarily having to understand every intricate piece to it in order to get it out there.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes so much sense. Well, Mary, I can't thank you enough for being a part of the podcast and filling us with all of this knowledge, because I do think it's not a lot of things that people think about, right? We get these great ideas and we're like, I don't know where to go, so we just don't do them. Or we try to start them. We do all the things, reach out to 10,000 people and never get ourselves in the right direction because we spent so much time in the research section. Right. And I feel like you just cut all of that completely out.
A lot of research. I just happen to remember a lot of stuff. I offer people a free 15-minute consult on my website. I'm at businessriff.com. And if people want to think about my office hours or download 10 mistakes startups make, you can go to startupsuccesslaunch.com.
I love that. And Mary, one thing that I always ask everybody that's part of the podcast is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, I like my quote from before. Life is a banquet and most poor suckers are starving to death. So, if you see it, eat it.
I love it. And give us those websites one more time, especially for the resources. I think that's extremely valuable.
Okay. Businessriff.com will get you to just about everything. And startupsuccesslaunch.com will get you the download of the 10 mistakes startups make, as well as potentially signing up for a free synergy call.
Which is wonderful. Mary, I cannot
you
thank
can
you
find me
enough.
on LinkedIn at Mary Scott STL, but you can find everything at businessriff.com.
This is the easiest place to go. Just go there. No, I can't thank you enough, Mary. This is absolutely amazing. I know there is someone somewhere out there that's listening to this that has been thinking about starting something, has that idea, and has been waiting for something like this. So to anyone out there, especially if you guys know of other people that have some amazing ideas or have started creating something within a startup, be sure to introduce them to Mary. She is a wealth of knowledge. And Mary, I can't thank you enough again for being a part of the podcast.
Thanks for letting me on your podcast, Kat. I really appreciate it. And I'll be happy to share your podcast with my resources too.
Thank you so much. And to everybody out there, I'll be sure we have all that information in the show notes so that you guys can easily click on it and find Mary and connect with her, especially if you have any questions or want to sit with her for her 15-minute chat. And don't forget, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.